At the start of World War I, submarines were little more than watertight cylinders. However, in the opening days of that war, the Unterseeboot U-9 sank 3 British cruisers in just over 1 hour, changing forever the traditional concepts of sea power. Meanwhile, the introduction of air power was proving more amusing than impressive. In spite of its fragile appearance, the airplane possessed 2 attributes which would eventually endanger the underwater craft: speed and long-range surveillance. By war's end, maritime patrol planes were routinely flying anti-submarine warfare, or ASW, missions. Supported by surface vessels, air power had become truly effective in helping counter the U-boat threat. By the start of World War II, the submarine had been substantially improved. Though faster and longer ranged, air power had to still rely on see-and-shoot tactics. Early in the war, a Lockheed-built Hudson became the first operational aircraft to be equipped with airborne radar. The Hunter could now see through the darkness of night, ending the submarine's use of nighttime cover to recharge its batteries. Soon, even the submarine's last refuge, the deep, was compromised by improvements in depth bombs and the addition of airborne sonar. By the end of World War II, it had nevertheless become clear that the submarine used in sufficient numbers could drastically affect the outcome of any future war, a lesson well perceived by the Soviet Union. By war's end, the largest submarine force in the world was Soviet, a position they still hold today. But it would not be until 1955, when the USS Nautilus radioed "underway on nuclear power," that the subsurface threat asserted its full potential. Assuming the Soviets would soon have their own nuclear submarines, the U.S. Navy was forced to reevaluate its ASW capability. A new, larger ASW airframe was needed, one with longer range, extended on-station endurance, and with the speed to reach very distant targets. Drawing on the experience of its long line of ASW aircraft, starting with the radar-armed Hudson, the Harpoon, and Ventura, and finally the P-2V Neptune, the most widely used maritime patrol aircraft of its day, Lockheed came prepared with almost 20 years of hands-on experience in building airborne anti-submarine weapon systems. From the start, the nuclear sub-threat seemed to argue one must use the most advanced technology available to counter this new subsurface weapon, such as jet engines and swept-back wings. But 2 decades of ASW experience had shown Lockheed that airborne ASW work required range, endurance, and low-speed loitering skills. Only the dash to get on station quickly would benefit from jet-like speeds. Thus, Lockheed chose the best of both technologies. For speed, it selected the jet power of the turbo engine, which retained the exceptional low-speed stability of props, while 4 engines gave Lockheed's new ASW plane the capacity to carry a multitude of new weapon systems to extreme distances from land, with heretofore unheard-of reliability. This larger airframe also allowed for an extensive crew rest area, a vital consideration when patrols could easily last half a day, or even up to 16 hours, should the situation require. Cabin pressurization and air conditioning reduced crew stress while simultaneously improving the electronic system's performance with a universally cool environment. Lockheed would call this new ASW platform Orion, the Hunter. This marriage of prop, jet, and wide tubular fuselage, all borne on blunt yet extremely lift-efficient wings, was to represent a most flexible workhorse, one which could carry large and varied weapon loads to ranges exceeding 5,000 nautical miles, that could fly at dash speeds in excess of 400 knots, then loiter under 200 knots, on 3, or even 2 engines, thereby stretching Orion's long legs even longer. To the U.S. Navy, Orion was ideally suited to challenge the changing submarine threat. But to smaller nations, with limited resources, it was Orion's multi-mission capabilities which caught their attention. For here, within one airframe, was the plane which could meet all their airborne maritime needs. Two nations who were quick to recognize Orion's adaptability as a prime defense asset were New Zealand and Australia. Australia alone has a shoreline exceeding 12,000 miles.
We use the P-3 in a multi-role activity, as well as keeping our crews competent in the normal military role, which is, of course, anti-submarine warfare and ocean surveillance. We also have a Coast Guard activity, as Australia doesn't possess a Coast Guard, and we have an aircraft out practically every week somewhere around Australia patrolling the Australian fishing zone and economic zone. In addition to that, we maintain an aircraft on search and rescue standby all the time. We try to launch an aeroplane within an hour of notification of anybody around in distress. We're able to reach any part of the very long Australian coastline in 4 hours from here, and we've had a lot of successful missions on that particular role. We also maintain a detachment in Malaysia of 2 aircraft which are rotated from our base here at Edinburgh, and they're primarily employed on Indian Ocean surveillance.
With over 2,400,000 square miles of territorial waters to patrol, the P-3's search radar and navigational systems are 2 of Orion's most effective systems. Flying at 25,000 feet, Orion can survey a swath of ocean almost 270 nautical miles wide. At 350 knots, on a 10-hour mission, Orion can monitor 1 million square nautical miles. And through computer enhancement, it can see tiny objects, like a small boy adrift on a surfboard, which has occurred, or even a periscope. While Australia is the world's flattest continent, its close Commonwealth neighbor, New Zealand, is one of the world's most mountainous islands. With a population of less than 4 million, mission multiplicity and reduced support cost are vital. Since New Zealand deploys P-3s over broad areas of the Pacific, the planes frequently operate from minimally equipped bases, such as Fiji or the Cook Islands. Such mission self-sufficiency is another of Orion's major assets. Like the Mounted Police of Canada, these Orions play a major role in tying together New Zealand's widely diverse commitments, be it picking up a seriously ill person from a remote island or saving Asian boat people.
Number 5 Squadron was formed in Fiji in 1941. So the squadron has had a very long and intimate association with the people and the places of the South Pacific. Now, of course, we're based in Auckland, or just outside of Auckland, in New Zealand. And the area that we cover ranges from the South Pole all through the New Zealand economic zone, which is a very large one, to the mid-Tasman, far out into the centre of the South Pacific, and just to north of the equator. Now that is a very large area for the size of the unit which we have here, which consists of 6 aircraft, and we're established for 6 crews and maintenance personnel to support that. In addition to the flying that we do throughout the Pacific, which is done on a very regular basis, we also deploy to such areas as Barbers Point, to Guam, across into the Philippines, and up into Kadena in Japan.
Probably no nation is more dependent upon safe navigation of the seas than Japan. 90% of Japan's energy and industrial materials arrive via ship. Over 70% of her food is imported or comes from the sea. By 1970, Japan needed an advanced maritime weapon system to replace her aging Neptunes, one which could meet the technological needs of today as well as those of the next century. Though many airframes were considered, in the minds of the Japanese, the master ASW Hunter was still built by Lockheed in an airframe called Orion. Due to Japan's extensive geographical spread, the need for a large maritime air wing was obvious. With respect to the size of the purchase, Lockheed licensed the manufacturing of the airframe to Kawasaki Heavy Industries. From the beginning, it was this mix of ASW Hunter, Guardian, weapon systems, savior of life, and built-in mission flexibility, which, as it had with Australia and New Zealand, caught the Japanese attention and convinced them it might well be another 2 or 3 decades before a better ASW Hunter was available. And it, too, would probably be designed by Lockheed. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, was formed as a defensive barrier to keep the Soviet Union from expanding further westward. This posture of strength through unity begins here, over these waters, where Orion excels in the mission it was conceived for, tracking the swift, deep-diving nuclear submarines. These are the waters of the Norwegian Sea, the northeast gateway to the Atlantic. These are the waters that lead to some of the free world's most vital sea lanes, and why NATO has concentrated the largest ASW force in history in, on, and above these waters. Orion is the vital link in this deterrent force, for it's the P-3's speed and advanced ASW systems which warn potential hostiles that the errors that existed at the start of past wars do not exist today. One of the most critical legs of this mission begins here, 170 miles north of the Arctic Circle, on what Norway calls its aircraft carrier, its airbase at Andøya. This is the starting point, the front line of NATO's commitment to keeping the peace through demonstrable preparedness, the first line of a tightly woven net of overlapping maritime air patrols. In spite of their numerous maritime chores, these Orions are all but indifferent to Andøya's precipitant climate. Even at the peak of Andøya's 6-week night, when ice, snow, wind, and low cloud bases would cancel normal flight operations, the Orions are rarely grounded.
Squadron mission includes surface and subsurface surveillance of Norwegian sea territory and adjacent international waters. The squadron is also supporting the Coast Guard, mainly in fishery patrols and search and rescue missions. From a national viewpoint, the tactical surveillance part is considered most vital since the immediate threat towards northern Norway may well be seaborne. Our missions are concentrated in the North Atlantic around the North Cape and into the Barents Sea. This means that we are in daily contact with both surface ships and submarines from the Soviets' Northern Fleet based in Murmansk. The 333 Squadron is daily operating the P-3B right on top of the most expansive and dense naval theater in the world, NATO's northern flank.
Another tangent to NATO's ASW mission is provided by the Royal Netherlands Navy. By also flying the P-3 Orion, the Dutch contribute to 3 vital NATO needs: commonality in weapon systems, mission compatibility, and access to skilled maintenance. From Andøya to Iceland to Canada, the Royal Netherlands Navy's Orions are never out of range of a P-3 base.
The tasking for the squadrons itself is that we have day and night ready aircraft available, and also a search and rescue aircraft on a 365 days a year basis. We carry out our Keflavik operations. We do all the training of our air crews over here in the Netherlands via the number 2 Squadron. We carry out NATO exercises, national and binational exercises, and we do cooperate a lot with our Netherlands Task Group and Stana Foreland, and that's a little bit different from the United States, the way they are operating. We would say ASW work about 60% and 40% working together with ships. And since the North Sea is one of the densest areas as far as shipping is concerned, we see a lot of our eastern neighbors, and we keep a close eye on them. We would like you then, in the area itself, here along the deep water route, to locate, report, and shadow Surf 74 Alpha Whiskey, which is an UGRA, and I'll quickly show you over here 2 photos. They will be in the brief book in the captain's folder, and for all the crew stations. And that's the UGRA you're going out for.
But the Netherlands' maritime needs, like Norway's, must reach beyond merely being part of NATO's deterrent force.
A very other important thing is for the P-3 flying over the North Sea is to detect the oil pollution. The tankers in the North Sea very often dump their wasted, spoiled oil overboard. They're trying to locate them at a specific moment. They're dumping the oil overboard. And once they have been captured, we're putting them on the photograph just to bring them before the court of law.
Human sight is indeed vital in the maritime patrol mission, and Orion's weapon systems multiply the power of this organ 1,000,000-fold. With radar that can see over 90,000 square nautical miles an hour. On days of low visibility or throughout the night, Orion's infrared display system can see where no human eye could otherwise watch, without the subject even knowing he's being observed. Hearing also plays a vital role. Orion probes the depths of the sea by listening through 32 or more channels of acoustic sonar, while a magnetic anomaly detection system can practically pinpoint the location of subsurface objects. All are intelligence-gathering systems, systems which are assisted and monitored by the swiftness of an onboard digital computer. Such are the eyes and ears and the brains of Orion. Taken together, they have no equal in today's airborne maritime mission. Equally as important as the ability to collect information is the ability to share it quickly and accurately. Here at the NAVCOM station, these tasks are accomplished with swiftness and accuracy never before realized. In the newer Orions, this information can be transmitted directly to other aircraft, ships, or base station, maximizing the effectiveness of similarly equipped forces involved in any given ASW operation. To the west, guarding the polar routes into the North Atlantic, is the nation with the world's longest coastline, Canada. Along her Atlantic seaboard alone, she must guard some 3,000 miles of coastal fishing waters, the transit of 15,000 major cargo ships yearly, while constantly tracking the submarine threat.
Although Canada's greatest maritime patrol requirement is anti-submarine warfare, and this will remain so as part of our war role and as part of the kind of operation that's necessary in a nation that has so much water around it. We do, however, have the world's longest coastline. And because of that, we have a variety of requirements which impinge on those areas like pollution, fisheries protection, smuggling, and a variety of other tasks given to us by the Canadian government. Our Arctic is a very special place to us, and it requires an aircraft that can take us well into the northern regions, into difficult navigation areas, and areas where there are long distances between bases where refueling and other services are available.
To meet the needs posed by these multidimensional challenges, Canada knew she must replace her aging airborne patrollers. After evaluating several competitive proposals, the Lockheed P-3 Orion team was selected by the Canadian government. Their task? Help develop and manufacture a patrol plane which could meet Canada's maritime needs well into the 21st century.
I was originally flying with the Argus on 415 Squadron in Summerside when I was asked to go to Burbank and help a Canadian Forces team to assist Lockheed in developing this new long-range patrol aircraft, subsequently called the Aurora. The aircraft was designed to be a multi-mission vehicle from day one, and certainly from my experience, including my present-day job, I can vouch for the fact that it has served all areas very well. But the primary purpose of the aircraft is ASW, and here we work very closely with our allies on both coasts in keeping track of the activities of our adversaries. The true purpose, of course, is deterrence. If we know exactly where our adversaries' submarines and aircraft are, and we let him know that we know, the purpose of deterrence is served.
Even though Aurora's avionics extensively utilized the reliability and compactness of solid-state circuitry and state-of-the-art processors, the airframe was still Orion. This is NATO's southern flank, where Spain and Portugal share the maritime burden. Aside from Gibraltar, westward from here, there are no natural choke points. Only the submarine's favorite haunt, the open, endless sea. Steadily, the Soviets have expanded their access to ports and airfields in the troubled continent of Africa, bases from which they can mount their own maritime strikes. Thus, the deterrence mission here means flying great distances with exceptional navigational accuracy. What has optimized the Orion as NATO's foremost ASW weapon is system commonality. Since nearly all of NATO's members who prosecute the ASW threat fly Orions, system redundancy is several layers deep, and experienced maintenance is always available. A case in point is Portugal. Here, P-3s are not only repaired, but can be totally refurbished in one of the world's most experienced and modern aerospace repair depots. This support is also available at Portugal's Azores bases, where along with her own P-3s, Portugal hosts numerous NATO visitors. Similarly, Spain can service Orions at her air bases in the Canary Islands, assuring any future convoys coast-to-coast aerial coverage. But what Spain's and Portugal's Orions best demonstrate is follow-up flights that can interface and digest the tactical data generated by earlier P-3 flights. For nations who must weigh each purchase with prudent circumspection, then support them with limited resources, the Orion's multi-mission capabilities provide a means to make a maximum contribution with minimal investment of manpower and operational cost. And when multiplied 4, 6, or even 8 times and more, NATO's commitment to counter the subsurface threat truly can be seen as a deterrent force. The localization of any submarine begins with a nibble of information here, another bit from someplace else, until a track begins to develop. The near-fatal flaw of ASW efforts in earlier wars was the failure to coordinate all the bits effectively. Here in the ASWAC, or Anti-Submarine Warfare Operations Center, this past error has been corrected. By digesting data from human sightings and thousands of electronic ones, a mosaic of submarine activity is formed. It is the ASWAC's task to piece the entire puzzle together, to strip away the redundant and aim the ASW forces toward the target. Because of Orion's quick response and advanced weapon systems, it is NATO's most effective weapon in utilizing this intelligence now. And Lockheed is in the process of making the best even better. Here at Lockheed's Advanced Systems Development Center, new parameters for ASW tactics weapon systems are being developed. The versatility potential of computer logic is being used to develop programs which will assist P-3 crews to more quickly localize submarines once detected. Other programs seek to improve older sound detection systems via digital acoustic processing, which uses computer logic to separate sounds made by human-conceived things from those made by nature. These state-of-the-art items are only part of Orion's future and will be retrofittable to current P-3s. Orion, a guardian of national sovereignty. The multi-mission warrior best suited to project a worldwide monolithic ASW capability. A capability which forces a potential aggressor to realize he must risk the prospect of protected sea lanes, of a protracted war. Factors which not only complicate his calculations, but cause hesitation and generate doubt of an easy victory. Orion, the hunter, yet a savior of life, a maritime patroller, and a most vital international guardian of peace.